Hi everyone. I hope you're all having a beautiful, blessed Sabbath. I want to thank you all for your continued support and especially watching my last video. It was difficult to share the previous video, but I want to mention to everyone that everyone goes through a unique journey towards our Lord, towards Yeshua. And that journey was very specific to me. And though it was very painful, I am very grateful though that it led me to the path of our Yeshua. Because if I hadn't gone through this, if I hadn't gone through every step, every obstacle and challenge in that journey, it would never have led me to Yeshua. I come from a Muslim background, and you don't see a lot of Muslims moving into Seventh-day Adventists. And Yeshua gave me an opportunity, and it was a journey, a long journey to get to where I am today. And I'm so grateful that I opened my mind, my eyes to Yeshua, and just followed that heart and um, followed into that journey because I could not have done that on my own. Yeshua had to lead me to that journey, get through that obstacles to get to where I am today. So, continuing on where I left off, I mentioned that I was living in Bangladesh for 4 months or so, 4 months or so with my husband. And if you recall that I was carrying um, when I was leaving Canada to go to Bangladesh, when I left my parents' place, I had taken the Quran with me, right? And I mentioned before that I wasn't totally religious, but um, like Islam was rooted in me. It was tied to me, and I felt that taking that Quran will keep me protected. I later now see it that no, it wasn't the Quran. It wasn't my belief in Islam that protected me. It was my Lord Yeshua that was protecting me along the way. Because this was the very first time where I was going on my own. You see, I was very sheltered. My parents did their best to protect me every possible way. Never really went into overnight camping trips or to um, grad trips where you would stay in New York or other popular tourist sites with your team, with your classmates for a long duration of time. So I've never done anything like that. It never exposed me to that type of world. So going into that journey, going into that journey, um, it was very scary for me, right? For me to go from Canada to Bangladesh, where it was a 2 day journey, where I had to get the visa, prepare my plane ticket, stay overnight in a hotel. That whole journey was scary for me. I felt completely alone. Even carrying the Quran, not once did I even open the Quran. I just did not feel a sense of security that I was getting. Um, and I felt completely alone during that time. Even to the point when I got to Bangladesh, right? You have to understand that I never met my ex-husband in person. It was only through messenger, messaging him, talking to him over the phone. We did do a video call, so I knew how he looked like, how he knew that I looked like. So obviously I was able to distinguish him when I saw him in person, right? But it was just a strange feeling, and a feeling of I wasn't meant to be here, kind of feeling like something seemed off. But I was totally in love, and I'm like, no, this is just that feeling because I haven't really met him in person. I haven't been exposed to this type of world, or be on my own completely. I always had my parents with me. I always had my brothers. I was completely on my own, and I'm going to be living with my ex-husband's family, who is also completely new to me too. So it was a very very lonely journey for me, to say the least. My ex-husband was very supportive, right? But it's not easy. It's not easy for anyone to understand what I was going through. But all I knew deep in my mind, that I'm getting what I want. I had that rebellious streak in me. We got married in Dhaka, where away from my family and his family, so that it doesn't create any issues. We got married religiously, and then we pretty much drove overnight from Dhaka to Sylhet, and finally got to Sylhet, and I met his mom, and then his rest of the family, and everything was going well. Right, we had a reception 2 days late, 3 days later actually, and I mentioned in my previous video that even in my reception, my parents' relatives had sent the police in, trying to like stop the marriage, right? Stop the reception, right? They said that this was a child marriage, blah 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 blah. But I wasn't child. I was over 18. I had to carry all my documents, like my birth certificate and my passport, everything with me, is just so that I could prove to the police that this is happening on my own accord, on my own decision, right? No one influenced me. There was nothing such of that, right? And then we got married. We lived together. And everything was fine, right? Until I started to see some tendencies with my ex that made me question my decision. Few instances where I saw how he was very abusive with his mom, where he would just yell at her, scream at her. One time he even, threw a shoe towards her, right? And then there was an umbrella too that he just threw against her too. His father was still living in the UK illegally, right? And so I start to see that temperament from him that I'm like, I'm not used to that temperament, right? But you know what? Maybe not all people are the same that can control their anger, right? And I had that conversation with him that, look, this is the first time I'm seeing something like this, and I'm worried that when we have something more difficult in the future, how you're going to react. Do I need to fear for my life, right? And he was like, of course, no, there's no such thing, there's no issues, right? There's nothing to be worried about. I would never hurt you, right? So the rest of the 4 months, everything was going well. For us, it was kind of like a honeymoon, right? Like me and him being together. And I was very happy with the decision, and, meeting with his family too. They were very supportive, very lovely. Can't complain about it. They were very, very nice people. When it was time for me to go back, for my safety, we decided that I was going to move to another city in Toronto. And so I decided to do that. I decided that, what, I'm gonna start a whole new life in a different city, right? And again, this was a very difficult journey for me. While I come from the country is the same, but it's a whole new city. I'm starting from scratch, a new life altogether. And when I came to Toronto, this was in 2017. It was a different time though, because we made arrangements where I would live with his relative, and I was trying to look for many jobs, right? Trying to find a good, decent job where I can just get my feet on and start working, start saving money as much as possible. I barely had any money on my hand, and I just needed a job where I could save and look after myself. I wasn't even eating 3 times a day, like once a day, and even if it wasn't good food, I was literally saving it for next day, so I can continue on. I moved out of his relative's house. Just again, they start talking about how we had this love marriage, and they were not really happy with the fact that I didn't get my parents' blessings. And so I moved out and lived with another woman and her 2 daughters in a house. And they were lovely people, very, very nice women, and her daughters, and they were very supportive while I was trying to get through it, paid rent, right? Paid rent, and I had a job, and I was working hard day and night, because I had three jobs at the time. Every day I was working, on the weekends too, and then also in the afternoons where I would be tutoring in French. So it was a struggle, I would say. It was a good struggle until I found a job that was a really good job. I had a very good salary, and they were looking for someone that was also bilingual. So my skill was being put to use, which is really good for me. And so I got into this job, and I felt that, you know what, this is a good job. The people are really good. And I felt that, honestly, at the time, I thought Allah was looking after me, right? I was like, you know what, I found a path. Allah is definitely looking after me. Hindsight, I am starting to feel that that's not the case, right? There is someone besides Allah, right? Our Yeshua, that was really looking after me. So I found a very good job, and it was a full-time position, good salary, good vacation balance, and I started working. Right, started working, got through my training, and then I started to talk started working on my job. Now, it was an office job, and we had cubicles, and I had my own cubicle too, my own desk, and at the time, I had a I had an older man that was sitting behind me, and this was my second day doing my job on my own after training, and he asked me, "Do you believe in the end of the world?" Right? We already had a conversation because he asked me where I'm from, and I asked him the same, um, and he also asked where what do I believe in, right? So I told him I'm Muslim, where my parents are from originally, where I came from, and I was not ashamed to tell my story, right? I told him what happened, right? And he found it very amusing, the fact that, like, I did this journey all by myself, and he said, like, this must be the love of your life. And I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, he is the love of my life. There was no hesitation to it. So the second day, when he asked me the question that, do you believe in the end of the world, I said no, because if you read in the Quran, right, it's not. Quran is a beautiful book, right? It's a beautiful book for Muslims, but when you study it further, like how we have it pointed out very clearly in the Bible, it's not the same. And of course, I said no, right? There is, we don't have a chapter dedicated completely about the end times, and or being exposed to that truth. So I said no, and that's when he was very curious about um, what I believed in as a Muslim. So I explained to him at what extent that I knew, right, and questions that he asked me, and I found it very interesting that he asked me these questions. When I asked him what does he believe in, he said, "I'm a Seventh-day Adventist." And it was actually through him. Till this day, I'm still in contact with him. He's still very close to me in my life, because he's the one that I feel that Yeshua brought me to him. You know, it almost seemed like Yeshua brought me to this point to be able to meet this person. He's a very knowledgeable person, and he wasn't. And just to give a little bit of background about him, um, he was born and raised, right, in a Catholic household, right. So it's a lot difficult. It's Catholic household. His parents were very into, having Jesus on a cross in different rooms, right, and had murals of Jesus and Mary, a lot of Mary and saints, right, and so he was born in that household, and his mom especially was really into that in that Catholic standpoint. And one day he had to question, right? Just like I was questioning too when it came to Islam, but especially about women and what we actually believe in, right? And what do we think? Because when he asked me good questions, like, do you believe in the end of the world? That was the very first time I heard someone ask me that question, and what does Islam say about that? And I didn't even know the answer, right? Because I've studied with a Quran teacher for decades, and you never come across in detail what that end of world will look like, or if there is any end of world, right? What you see mostly in context is that you go to an imam, and the imam will tell you that, yeah, no, the end of the world is not now, but there's no further discussion about it, right? Like, Allah will continue on the life, right? You don't need to worry about these things. So, for my friend, right? He became my friend at this point because I was so intrigued by what he was telling me about Seventh-day Adventists. And of course his journey too, because he wasn't born in a Seventh-day Adventist household. He came from that Catholic household, and when he was 15, I have to say he was very courageous for someone at the age of 15 to leave Catholic church and go into Seventh-day Adventist, right? He got baptized in a Seventh-day Adventist church, and since then he's been a practicing Seventh-day Adventist. And for him, it was more that, the Bible, very basic truths you see, right? Which is very similar in the Quran too, right? The Bible forbids us that we should be having pictures of Jesus, pictures of Mary, or, having like these types of artifacts, right? Where we shouldn't be putting them into the light like this, into pictures and murals, which if you go into a Catholic church, you see it everywhere, right? Then you have the Pope, right? Or you have the priest. So it's just completely blasphemy for the things that they're saying, or the things that are completely against the Bible. And for him, it was more of, that's not what's written in the Bible. The Bible tells us what to do, tells us what the truth is. But when you look at the Catholic Church, it is completely the opposite of what they're doing, what they're saying, right? I mean, you look at the book of Revelation, it's very clear who the little horn is, right? Dressed in scarlet, and you have the golden cup. You can go into Google Images and you'll see who is this person dressed in scarlet and holding the golden cup, right? So the Bible is so powerful in his eyes that everything is laid out, everything is written out, how we should lead our life in the hands of our Yeshua. And so when he saw that contrast with the Catholic Church and what his family believed in and what he was supposed to believe in, it's like, this is the complete opposite. Yeshua never told us to do this. Yeshua never told us that we should be leading that type of life. And so that led him to that decision to, at the age of 15, to convert, right? To get baptized into Seventh-day Adventist. And it takes a lot of courage to go in front of your family to say that. Now, of course, he comes from a family that's not so strict like mine is, where, his parents ultimately, said, like, it's what it is for you. You want to believe in that, so be it, right? But for me, even at the age of 18, when I met him, I'm like thinking that, wow, like, there is something with the Bible, because I downloaded a Bible on my phone and I started reading the Bible, and I shouldn't, right? And I never told my ex-husband that too. But when my friends started talking about it, showed me live examples, right? Especially, the biblical prophecy that we saw, right? From Babylon to Medo-Persia to Greeks, to the Roman Empire, and then here we are to the little horn and to the end times. Everything is laid out in history, exactly what was described in the Bible much before all these events happened. That was that to me came as shocking, because you open the Quran, you don't see that. You don't see what was already predicted, what was already going to be fulfilled as a prophecy when it came to these, basically these prophetic times that's pretty much laid out in the Bible, right? Now, obviously, growing up, my parents have always told me to never get into the discussions with people that are Christians or Protestants, or open a Bible. It's, in their eyes, it was blasphemy too for them, right? But I couldn't help it. I had to open the Bible, right? Because as soon as my friend told me and explained to me, showed it to me through his own religious book that shows that this is what's been prophesied. This is what we've been told by Yeshua. This is what's going to happen in the end times. This is what's leading up to it. And you see it completely being unfolded. The Bible came to life. And I found that so beautiful, but also shocking, because how does a religious book come to life like that? Because what he was saying to me, I had to fact check. I had to go into the history books and look for myself that, oh my goodness, this is indeed what happened. Or whatever I have been studying in school from a history lessons, it's exactly what's written in the Bible. The Bible was already telling us what is coming, what is happening, much before the events had been unfolding. That I found very powerful, because no other religious books could do that. Depicted that, predicted that future. And now I'm not talking about predicted here, because the Bible told us exactly what was going to happen. There's no predictions to it. Yeshua already knew what was going to happen. He has a panoramic view. If you think about it, he has a panoramic view of all of our lives, but also the view of the whole world that God has created. In Genesis, you see that you see how beautifully it's written, how the Lord created this world in 6 days, and the 7th day he rested, right? Each day what he has created, and how this world has come to form, not through a Big Bang theory that we're being taught in school and that, right? You see how he beautifully created this world one at a time, right? From lightness to dark, right? To giving the land and sea to animals to humans, right? It was just beautiful. In 6 days, he's created this world. And it's sad to see that science would always degrade and our Lord's creation by saying that it was a Big Bang theory, or there was particles that collided to create this world, right? So it's just so beautifully written in this order from the Bible standpoint. But when I open up the Quran, I'm like, why can't the Quran give that to me, right? You have if you look at the Muslim population today, it is huge. I don't know what the population is now, right? But it is a huge population. It's after Christianity. And to see that so many people believe in it, we can't answer the simple questions, right? We can't be firm believers or stand firm in what we believe in. The people that really believe in it, they're like parrots. They repeat the same thing over and over again. Like you look at, many Muslim scholars that are on these public platforms speaking about Islam is the true religion. And you are posing them the difficult questions, right? Or directly quoting from the Bible. They can't answer it with reason. They can't answer it that makes sense. So it just comes to that point where I couldn't even answer some of the questions, simple questions that that my friend was asking. And I know people will say to me, well, maybe you don't know your Quran as well, right? Believe me, I took a lot of time to study about the Quran, because when he started asking me these questions, it bothered me that I couldn't answer these questions. And you're right, I at first, thought that maybe I don't know the Quran so well. Let me research about it. And I've researched, I've gone through different articles, went to different imams on different online platforms, but they couldn't give me the answer that the Bible was able to answer so well. And that started to crumble my faith in Islam. That if a religious book, and you have, high profile educated imams, I shouldn't have to go to an imam to find out the answer. The answer should be in the Bible. So that's one thing. And even if I went to the imam to ask the questions, they still couldn't answer my question. Questions that are actually that were already answered in the Bible. And that started to crumble my faith in Islam. And I started to embrace, I started to be more open, have that open mind towards, okay, let me learn more about Seventh-day Adventists, because there's a lot more to it, and there should be a lot more people talking about it. But why isn't it, right? So I'm going to continue on in my next video in this journey, but I'm so grateful, even talking and sharing with all of you my testimony. I feel so grateful that Yeshua gave me the courage to speak about my journey, because at the end of the day, we have that responsibility that we need to share our faith and get more people to know about our faith. This is not a faith we own, right? Yeshua wants us to share his word with everyone, share the truth. And I'm hoping that it's coming across to young individuals or people that are struggling to leave a faith that is not supporting them, that they don't believe in, and being fully welcomed with open arms into Seventh-day Adventists. Thank you so much, and I hope you all continue to have a blessed Sabbath. I pray to Yeshua that he keeps you all in good health, lots of wisdom, and continue to share the word. Thank you, everyone.